You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to The Spectral Zone with host Caz Rooney.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Spectral Zone on Parasearch Radio UK. As always, I am Caz Rooney, and I'm your host for tonight. And joining me in the studio is our very one and only Mark Manley. Hello, Mark.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm absolutely fine, thank you. I'm stone cold sober, unlike other people, and you've only called it the Spectral Zone because we've all got glasses. You know that, I know it, but I look gorgeous in them.
Okay then, there is that, but it's also to do with ghosts, Mark. That's why we called it that. Anyway, right.
It's not anything to do with spirits then?
Spirits and ghosts and spectres and all that. You know, the usual.
I was thinking more like pub
stuff.
spirits, you know.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay, right.
Right, tonight we're covering a subject that is, well, it's part 2 of a subject that is one of my favourite subjects.
Would this be the School of Rock?
It would be, yes.
The Gods of Rock Part 2?
Yeah. And I know you're a bit of a rock fan, aren't you?
I do like my rock music, yes. I have to admit, I as you may or may not know, because with the motorbike stuff I do, I've put a bloody great big 12-inch sub in the boot of the car with a 1200 watt amp. No, it's purely for when we do rallies. If it's a PA system goes down, you can use it as a PA. But I decided to stick Def Leppard on the other day and pour some sugar on me and whacked it up and yeah, very good.
I bet that was awesome.
It was, and so was Iron Maiden, Can I Play With Madness, but yeah.
Oh, wow. Should have played Fear of the Dark. That would have been really good, that high. That loud, that would have been really good. Fear of the Dark, that's the next one you need to play. Right, to jump straight into this, we'll start with John Lennon.
Go on then. Do you want to do the main bit of John Lennon, and then I'll come in about my link?
Yes, I know. I have to let you get your little...
Sorry?
Never mind. Right.
Get me what out?
John Lennon, as everybody knows, was famously shot outside the Dakota Building in New York. But John Lennon actually claimed to have his own paranormal experiences while he lived in the Dakota Building. He regularly told tales of seeing a spirit he called the Crying Lady walking the halls of the building. Now, the theory is that Lennon and many others who have seen this Crying Lady were seeing the ghost of Elise Vesley, who managed the Dakota Building through the 1930s, 40s and 50s. Elise, who was apparently very into paranormal herself, believed she had psychokinetic powers and was a major player in the Vedanta movement. And often, as this story is told, Miss Vesley suffered a great tragedy when her son was hit by a truck outside the Dakota Building. The boy died, and by all accounts, Mrs. Vesley was never the same again. She took to being extra nice and extra protective of the children that lived in the Dakota. And that's why they think that she wanders up and down the Dakota Building today. But he claims that he saw her. And
Well, he might have. He might have done, but I mean, you've got to remember that, like, you know, John Lennon and Yoko Ono, to be absolutely fair, were completely off their tits half the time. So you never know.
But that's a rock god thing, isn't it?
To be honest, it's probably a paranormal investigator thing as well.
Oi! I beg your pardon. No, but honestly, it does seem to be a rock theme thing where they're quite into their pharmaceuticals. Should we put it that way?
I think, if I remember rightly, the Dakota Building has had quite a few sightings from various other people as well.
Yeah, it wasn't just him.
So it was a lot of stuff going on there, and I think it was all the same stories, all to do with that woman.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
pardon me.
John Lennon, as we all know, was shot outside that building.
Mm.
But the most famous story of Lennon's ghost appearing in the Dakota was told by Yoko Ono. There's a surprise. Yeah, well, there's a surprise. Anyway, as the story goes, Yoko, who lived in Dakota for 20 years after Lennon's death, saw the spirit of the musical god sitting at his piano. Lennon turned to Yoko and said, "Don't be afraid, I'm still with you," and then vanished.
That explains why her singing's so crap. But anyway.
Well, there is that.
Have you seen her when she did that museum piece and stood there going, "Ah!" down the microphone?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was touched.
The first reported sighting of Lennon's ghost was in 1983 when Joey Harrow and Amanda Moores spotted the Beatles standing at the entrance of the Dakota. Harrow claimed that Lennon was surrounded by an ominous light, and Moores said she almost walked up to Lennon, but the look on his face suggested he wasn't in the mood to talk to strangers.
And I'll give you another thing. You know, where Yoko reckons she saw John Lennon, and he said, "Don't worry, I'm with you." Yeah.
Yeah.
Which floor was it on?
It was in the house.
It was under Dakota Building, but which floor? I know.
I don't know. Which floor was it?
The 13th floor.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and most buildings, as you know, in America don't have a 13th floor because of the paranormal connotations that are associated with it. But the Dakota Building has got a 13th floor, and that's where she saw her husband.
Ah.
So there you go, useless bit of information.
Do you know what? Here's another bit of kind of creepy information. But John Lennon had claimed in the past he saw a picture of Yoko Ono's grandfather and said, "Oh my God, that was me in a past life." So Yoko Ono said, "Oh my God, don't say that. He was assassinated." Go forward a few years.
Yeah, just a little bit.
That's a bit creepy.
Just a little bit. And did you know that the Dakota Building has no fire escapes?
Really?
I have no idea what you were doing then, but yes, we're this way. Hello, dear. It has no fire escapes. It has no fire escapes, and the guy who built it avoided fire escapes basically by covering the entire place in mud from Central Park between the layers of brick flooring to fireproof and soundproof the building. So if there's ever any fires there, you're all knackered, basically.
But how can they get away with building a building that size and not putting fire escapes?
Because
no matter how much mud it's on it.
Because back then you could. I mean, it was known that. It was built in the early 18th century, so back then you could just grease a few palms and that would have been it.
That's shocking.
Well, I mean, the guy who owned the Singer sewing machine company, Edward Clark, he was the guy who built it, had it commissioned and had it built. And it cost him $1 million, and it was $1 million apartment building for 60 families, including his own. And he died in 1862, and the building was finished in 1864.
Wow.
So yes, and there you go.
I believe you have another little story about John Lennon.
I do, and as you guys know, Caz has accosted me from the Dark Mirror show, where I'm well known for going aliens. As you do. And I can honestly say that with this one, I can say aliens because I have a link to John Lennon and a UFO sighting.
Wait.
Basically, he was with his secretary, May Pang, woohoo, another Chinese one, when the pair were at his New York apartment. He was at his New York apartment on his own with May Pang, me love you long time, $20. The Beatles. And the Beatles sighting was recounted in the book that Miss Pang later went on to write, entitled Loving John.
Oh.
Anyway, she wrote, the large circular object was coming towards us. It was shaped like a flattened cone, and on top was a large, brilliant red light. When it came a little closer, we could make out a row of circle of bright lights that ran around the entire rim of the craft. It's craft, love. Craft. Yes. Lennon was separated from his lover, Yoko Ono, at the time. Oh, I see. So he went from Japan to China. Right. He later referred to the sighting on the cover of his solo album, Walls and Bridges, which was actually released the same year as the sighting. And he says on his album cover that he saw a UFO. And it does say on there. If you look at the album cover, there's a on the sleeve there's a drawing that he did himself in like Sharpie, and on there is a picture of a UFO with them looking at it, and it says UFO on it, and it's all done by him. Anyway, Miss Pang continues in about Miss Pang. What a name! I'm sorry. He went from do you know what? It's like going out and having a meal, isn't it? One day you fancy Japanese, next day you fancied a bit of Chinese. He had a bit of a pang for a Chinese. He wanted a number 69 chicken balls and sweet and sour chicken balls and egg fried rice. Anyway, Miss Pang continued. We had just ordered up some pizzas. Since it was such a warm evening, we decided to step out on the terrace. There were no windows directly facing us from across the street, so John just stepped outside with nothing on. In order to catch a cool breeze that was coming in right off the East River, he spun round very quickly, knocked over a few ornaments. I remember I was just inside the bedroom getting dressed when John started shouting for me to come out on the terrace, man. And she said she yelled back that she'd be right there. So she went, I'll be right there! Just who wait? $20. But Lennon screamed for her to join him that instant. And she said, as I walked out onto the terrace, my eye caught this large circular object in the sky. Oh. She said, it was not pulsating, he'd been ill, like one of the many aircraft I had seen landing at Newark Airport. She described the lights around the rim. They were flashing on and off. There were so many of these lights, and it was dazzling to the mind. See, drugs comes to mind here. It was, I estimate, about the size of a Learjet. Learjet. It's not that big, but I suppose it could be like, I don't know, interstellar taxi. And it was so close that if we had something to throw at it, we probably would have hit it quite easily. But seeing as John was naked, I told him not to throw that because he would injure himself. She claimed the object just eerily passed by. And she added, we often had helicopters. Harry Ramson. Helicopters, echo, flying above us. But this was as silent as the night and about 17 stories above street level. She told how the object flew off, but returned later. Lennon had set up a telescope by this point so that they were able to view it in better detail. And she recalled, the light was so brilliant coming from the craft that no additional details could be seen. We did take a couple of pictures. I've gone German now. But when they took the pictures, they actually turned it overexposed. A bit like he was when he came out earlier onto the landing. She said they also rang a local newspaper to report the sightings, and they were told at least 7 other people had seen the UF2, and it had been reported to the police and the press at the time. She said, we even called the police. That's how excited we were. And they told us to keep calm, that others had seen it too. During what was left of the evening, John kept saying to her, I can't believe it. Hey, man, I've seen the flying saucer. And no drugs were allegedly involved. And there you go. That's their story.
Are you sure there's no drugs involved?
Well, when she said, I was all right until she said the psychedelic colours circling around his... Oh, the circular of the UFO. And then I just thought, Jacob's ladder, LSD. No, something like that anyway.
Right. I've got another story for you about, believe it or not, Cher.
Well, Cher and her penchant for big navy ships full of seamen. Yes.
Apparently, she actually prefers ghosts to some humans, as do quite a few of us, to be fair.
Yeah.
But she does. But Cher believes that she's been haunted, in a good way, not a bad way, by the ghost of her late ex-husband, Sonny Bono.
But wasn't he a git, if I remember rightly?
Do you know what? I think they were both kind of they worked really well together for a time, and then it just kind of went bad, I think.
Because it was like Ike and Tina, wasn't it? They started off all right, and then he turned into a complete shitbag.
Yeah, I think so.
Same sort of thing, wasn't it? Carry on.
Well, quoting what Cher had said, she said, "I love ghosts. I actually think Sonny makes a light go on. I have a beautiful chandelier that he makes the light go on when it is impossible for it to go on. There's no power on." She says, "I love ghosts. I actually prefer ghosts to some people." That's actually fair enough, isn't it?
It is fair enough, yes. Actually, I don't know. I can imagine that if you do love somebody enough, you will come back. And you will see them in this, that, and the other, but they didn't get on. And then again, you've got all the conspiracy theory behind how he died, because it was an alleged skiing accident, but a lot of people have said that from the injuries, that was no skiing accident. So, we will just leave that one out in the open. It's just based on conjecture and hearsay.
Personal experience. It's personal experience. That's it. It's a personal experience, isn't it? So
exactly. And also, another thing I meant to say to you is that I've actually got quite a few very famous pop stars who have allegedly seen UFOs and have recounted the stories and made reports of them.
Really?
Did you know Elvis Presley saw one?
Really?
Yeah. Basically, Elvis had a thing about UFOs.
Okay.
And he reckons, I mean, this is Elvis Presley's own words. He shared telepathic visions with aliens since he was 8 years old. And one featured a future Elvis in a white jumpsuit, and that was one of the visions he saw when he was a kid. So he saw himself in his white spangly jumpsuit when he was like 8 years old. Wow. His advisor and hairstylist, Larry Geller, said the pair had also seen bright objects in the sky while out driving in the desert and then hovering above Graceland at a later date. A UFO was also allegedly seen hovering in the sky by Vernon Presley when his son was being born. So, Geller said his father told us that he'd gone out to have a cigarette at 2 a.m. during the delivery, and when he looked up into the skies above their little shack, he saw the strangest blue light, and he knew right there and then that something special was happening. Wow. And after his death, UFO spotting and Elvis spotting became somewhat synonymous with certain sections of the press.
Ah, that's quite interesting, actually.
There's also a member of the Trogs. He's seen it. Yes, there's Robbie Williams, who I know somebody else is in the background going.
No, she absolutely loves Robbie Williams, so it's all good.
What? Kerry Williams? Kerry Williams? Kerry Greenaway.
Yeah, Kerry Greenaway loves Robbie Williams.
I don't know. If you say Robbie Williams 3 times to it, it's like opening a fridge door to her front. I tell you. It's just like, here we go, Robbie Williams. Oh, my areolas are popping. Carry on.
Mark.
Yes.
Talking about Kerry Greenaway.
Yes.
I believe you've got some stories about David Bowie.
Which ones would you like?
Just go for it.
All right, let's start with David Bowie as encounter with Satan. Right. Now, the story I'm going to recount comes from Angela Bowie's, which was David Bowie's ex-wife, biography of him. For anybody who wants to, go out and read it themselves or buy it or anything, it's called Backstage Passes: Life on the Wild Side with David Bowie, and this is where the story's from. Right. I've seen quite a few interviews with Bowie himself, and he does refer to this incident. So it's not like it's, where did this come from? Anyway, during the mid-70s, Bowie entered a low period when he experimented with cocaine and the occult, as you all do. We've all been there. Demons, horns, bit of coke. Yeah, there you go. It was the mid. Yeah, yeah. It was the mid-70s, and he'd moved to LA. And several years had passed since the horrific Manson murders that LA was still recovering from. It was during this tumultuous period when David Bowie decided to perform an exorcism in his pool at his house in LA. Perhaps he decided to perform an exorcism in his pool, in the pool of his house in LA. Perhaps fueled by cocaine-addled paranoia, Bowie believed that Satanists and evil spirits were trying to capture him.
Yeah.
The man who fell to earth. He would try his best using the occult to stop them. And the following is an excerpt from the book as told by Angela Bowie. Right, so here we go. There was a beautiful Art Deco house on 6 acres, an exquisite site property and a terrific value at just $300,000, which if you think 6 acres on a massive Art Deco house, even in the 70s, $300,000, that's cheap. Yeah. But Bowie took one look at the detail I hadn't noticed. A hexagram was painted on the floor of a circular room by the previous owner. Oh, Gypsy Rose Lee. I think you might have heard that. A great deal of coddling and reassurance got us through that crisis. And I went and found the Dowry Drive House, built in the late 50s, early 60s. It was a white cube surrounding an indoor swimming pool. David liked the place, but I thought it was too small to meet our needs for very long. I wasn't crazy about the pool. In my experience, indoor pools are always a problem, especially when you're off your tits and stuff. This one was no exception, albeit not in any of the usual ways. Its drawback was one that I hadn't encountered before, and I haven't seen or heard of since. Satan lived in it. With his own eyes, David had said he'd seen him rising up out of the water one night. Right. So this time, she went back to his publisher with a tall order. David wanted an exorcism. A Greek Orthodox church in LA would have done it for us. There was a priest available for such a service, the people had told me. But David wouldn't have none of it. Wouldn't have none of it. My God, that was good English. Wouldn't have any of it. No strangers allowed, he said. So there we stood with just Wally's instructions and a few $100 worth of books, talismans, and other assorted items from Hollywood's comprehensive selection of fine occult emporia. So there he was, David Bowie, primed and ready. The proper books and doodads were arranged on a big old-fashioned lectern. The incantation began. And although I had no idea what was being said or what language it was being said in, it was probably Latin, I suspect, I couldn't stop a weird cold feeling rising up in me as David droned on and on. There's no easy or elegant way to say this, so I'll just say it straight. At a certain point in the ritual, the pool began to bubble. It bubbled vigorously, perhaps thrashed is a better term, in a manner inconsistent with any explanation involving air filters or the like. Personally, baked beans would do just as good a job. As David watched this happening in absolute terror, I tried to be flippant. Well, dear, aren't you clever? It seems to be working. Something's making a move, don't you think? But I couldn't keep it up. Neither could he with all the drugs. It was very, very strange. And even after my recent experiences, I was having trouble accepting what my eyes were seeing. We both left the pool in a hurry, and David told me to check up on the pool from time to time. I kept my eye on it for the next 40 minutes or so, and nothing unusual happened. So with my heart in my mouth, I slid one of the glass doors open, and ignoring David's panicked screams, went to the edge of the pool and looked in. And now this is where she says, I saw what I saw, nothing could change that. On the bottom of the pool was a large shadow or stain, which had not been there before the ritual began. It was in the shape of a beast of the underworld. It reminded me of those twisted, tormented gargoyles screaming silently from the spires of medieval cathedrals. It was ugly, shocking, and malevolent, and it frightened me. Oh. I backed away from it, feeling very strange, went through the doorway and told David what I'd seen. Trying to be nonchalant, I just seen a demon. It's cool, dude. But not doing very well. He turned white, but eventually became revived enough to spend the rest of the night doing coke. Rock and roll. Can you imagine? You've just done an exorcism. A demon's in your pool. Stuff it. Let's have a line. Oh dear. And you wouldn't go near the pool, though. I still don't know what to think about that night. It runs directly counter to my pragmatism and my everyday faith in the integrity of the normal world. It confuses me greatly. But what troubles me most is if you were all to claim the mark of Satan, I don't see how I could argue with you. David, of course, insisted that we move from the house as quickly as possible, and we did that. But I've heard from reliable sources and from the property's real estate agent that subsequent tenants haven't been able to remove that stain or shadow. Even though the pool's been painted over a number of times, the shadows always come back.
Wow, that's kind of creepy, actually.
Yeah, it is just a little bit. What's your take on that? And do you have a chat room? Is there anybody in the chat room listening?
Come on, chat room.
Come on, you miserable buggers, get typing.
Come on, people.
So what do you think of that?
I think it's got a lot to do with the previous owner.
You think? Gypsy Rose Lee?
You think? I think the previous owner must have been into some dodgy things, maybe.
Well, when you think about it,
It's
I mean...
some practices that maybe we're not all accustomed to, put it that way.
To be absolutely honest, most of America was all of America was Native American land, duh, and lots of things, as in Poltergeist, were built on Native American land. So, if Gypsy Rose Lee lived there, then she must have known there was something there for in the first place for her to live there. And as we stories about Gypsy Rose Lee and stuff, she wasn't whiter than white, and she did used to dabble in things that perhaps us mere mortals shouldn't really dabble in.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But I mean, why would someone like him be drawn to a house like that? It was always a bit strange, though. You've got to be fair.
I've seen half of his videos and his movies. That one about the vampires. I mean, if you, batshit.
Yeah. He's always been a bit of a strange kind of person. Interesting, but quite strange.
Man who fell to earth, yes.
Well, I mean, come on. The guy actually orchestrated releasing his album on the day he died.
Which, to be fair, was very cool.
It's very cool. It's very freaking freaky as well. It
was. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of Bowie. I did like his 80s stuff. I like Red Shoes. Was it Put On Your Red Shoes and Dance?
Yeah.
Absolute Beginners.
Modern Love and stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff. And what's that one he did with Mick Jagger? Dancing in the Street. Quite a lot. Yeah. I loved all the 80s stuff. But the 70s stuff, because I was only tiny in the 70s. Yeah. I sort of listened to it and I'm like, my God, man, what the hell were you snorting? So,
Yeah.
Mind you, it's like most 70s music. Do you listen to the words in that and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Just what?
But do you know the funny thing is, Starman is still one of my favourite songs.
Which one?
Starman.
Oh, yeah, Starman.
Starman is definitely one of my favourite songs.
Well, I listen... When I'm at work, when I'm a lowly security officer, and when I'm driving here, there, and everywhere, I have absolute 80s radio on, and they play a lot of Bowie on there.
Yeah, they would do. I can imagine they would do. Right, but going back to kind of more rockish gods, what's your take on Vince Neil from Motley Crue? He's been on Ghost Adventures.
I've seen him on Ghost Adventures, and I will not voice my opinion on Ghost Adventures here, but those of the paranormal world that know me know my opinion on Ghost Adventures.
Yes.
I think, quite frankly, take me along on one of your investigations, mate. We'll see what's going on. But that's another matter.
Mr. Vince Neil. Now, what's interesting about Vince Neil? I mean, unless you,
I feel really sorry for him for what happened, because yourself, we lost our son, and but he lost his daughter 5 years old through cancer. I mean, that poor little girl. My heart goes out to the family for that. Yeah. And he says himself he was sedated on pills and alcohol because he couldn't take the pain, and I completely understand that 100%. So whether the love, we all talk about it. When you love somebody so much, you have got that link, and you can come up and see him, see your family. Whether that happened, or whether it was pills and alcohol, or whether it was a bit of both.
Yeah.
Something's happened.
Well, basically, as Vince has put it, he says after we buried Skylar, her name was Skylar, and she was 5 years old, and as Mark says, she passed away from cancer. I sedated myself on pills and alcohol. I couldn't take it. For months, I really tried to kill myself and wanted to die. It went on for 2 years after she passed away. He was in and out of 8 or 9 rehabs, but he kept feeling that she was waiting for him. The only place I wanted to go was to her. One night I was lying in bed with a blanket, still wanting to die. I was sound asleep and there was a little tug on the blanket. I woke up, opened my eyes, and the door was wide open. I was scared. I didn't know what was going on, but it was her, and she was standing there.
And it was that's caused him to found the Skylar Neil Foundation.
Yeah.
And whose mission is to honour Skylar by raising money and awareness for unique charitable events and activities it sponsors, to grant and award the money raised to medical research and educational institutions, etc. So they do a very good job trying to find cures for cancer, AIDS, and other diseases. So, yes, definitely.
I think Vince and the Skylar Neil Foundation have donated nearly $2 million.
Something like that. Sorry, I've got... Can you see that? Can you actually see that over there?
No.
I have a cat in the corner of the room trying to climb on a metal curtain pole, and she's not doing She's just like an idiot. Sorry, carry on. Oh, dear.
To date, Vince and the Skylar Neil Foundation have donated nearly $2 million to various charitable organisations, including the TJ Martell Foundation, Little Claire Foundation, who share a dedication to that cause, which would be childhood cancers, basically. But in 2012, Vince Neil, again, appeared on Ghost Adventures. With, as it was then, it was Zach, Nick and Aaron. And they investigated the allegedly haunted Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas. Along with Frank Sinatra's former pianist, Bruce Westcott.
That was pianist. She said pianist with a Scottish accent. So it came out as pianist. But don't worry, she meant pianist.
I meant piano player. With that piano player. Former piano player, Bruce Westcott.
See you, Jimmy, you pianist.
In 2006, World Series of Poker champion Jamie Gold, Neil and the crew threw a party in the penthouse suite. Frank Sinatra was there whenever they played the Riviera in an effort to conjure up the ghost of Vegas past. So there you go.
You know what? I've heard about that before with a couple of other things, but that's for... Oh, what have I just done? That's for a different... yeah. I'm bouncing through all these different pages open on my computer, and every time I click on something, I'm dreading what else is going to come up on my screen. Right. Would you like me to read something else out for you?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
All right, let me have a look. Would you like me to read something out about Robbie Williams?
No. It's
what about Tom? All right, Tom DeLonge from Blink 182.
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah?
It's better than Robbie Williams.
All right. Aliens exist. Blink 182's Tom DeLonge Kerrang in 1999. They're in your butt. Okay. And although the interviewer clearly assumed the singer-guitarist was kidding, it turns out his interest in UFOs is no laughing matter. DeLonge has gone on record to say he's met aliens near United States Air Force Facility, Area 51 in Nevada. And according to The Independent, he has suggested authorities are looking for him because he's getting too close to the truth. He even eschewed the day job with the pop-punk pioneers in 2015 when his extraterrestrial interests conflicted with his musical ones. Basically, he left the band to become a full-time ufologist. Blink 182 released a statement complaining, "A week before we were scheduled to go into the studio, man, we got an email from his manager, man, explaining that he didn't want to participate in any Blink 182 projects, man, indefinitely, man, but would rather work on his other non-musical endeavors, man. He's seeing flying saucers, man!" Other non-musical endeavors include an extensive bibliography. and books and this, that, and the other. And he's done a book called Secret Machines, Gods, Man, and War. And he wrote it along with ufologist Peter Lavender. So this guy is seriously into investigating his UFOs and stuff like that. And he swears blind he has seen them and interacted with them and everything. Do you want to know another famous person who has stated that they saw UFOs? And this, I think, is brilliant because of who the person is. And I know it was drugs and rock and roll, but yeah.
Right, I'm going to give you one more UFO story.
You're not going to give me one. Your boyfriend's there and I've got a girlfriend. Behave yourself, young lady.
One UFO story and that's it.
Jimi Hendrix.
Go for it.
Little Johnny Allen Hendrix, his parents would later change his name to James Marshall, insisted on being called Buster for a time. And so obsessed was he with Flash Gordon, played by the actor Buster Crabbe in 1936. That's why he liked being called Buster. This fascination with all things space was compounded by a UFO sighting out of his back window in Washington state one night, and it was also witnessed by his brother Leon. For Hendrix, who grew up in Pennery, an interest in aliens conflicted with a love of no-holds-barred new musical format called rock and roll. Hendrix apparently took a broom to school and pretended it was a guitar, and spent hours at his desk doodling and dreamily doing UFOs in his school book. And it turned out that Hendrix and his brother weren't the only people to see that alien. It was the typical saucer shape with lights around it, but it was also reported to one of the local police officers who, as he stated it, there was some hicks smoking the devil's lettuce.
Wow.
But it wasn't just Jimi Hendrix and his brother. Everybody else saw it as well. So there you go. Mr. Jimi Hendrix, thank you very much. And Lemmy.
There you go. Well, I've got a good story for you. Yep. This is about Graham Parsons. Mm-hmm. Do you know who this is? Yeah?
I have no idea who Graham Parsons is.
The dramatic story of Parsons' death is the stuff of legend, to the point that it was once made into a movie. Probably a really bad one. Parsons...
Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah. Right. Parsons, formerly of the Flying Burrito Brothers and a frequent Emmylou Harris collaborator in Paranormal, was a staple in the 70s California country rock scene. He lived a wild, fast life, often accompanied in his exploits by his manager and best friend, Phil Kaufman. The duo would often spend days in California desert around Joshua Tree National Park. Can't blame them for that. I'd love to go and see Joshua Tree. Well, they were hallucinogenics.
Hallucinogenics are watching for UFOs.
UFOs. During one of these trips, Parsons told Kaufman that when he died, he wanted his friends to take his body out to Joshua Tree and burn him on a pyre. Parsons died in 1973, aged 26.
Good God.
In the Joshua Tree Inn, believe it or not. Overdosing on alcohol during one of his desert excursions. Although Parsons' family requested that his body be shipped back to Louisiana, Kaufman, heeding Parsons' earlier request, stole the body from LAX, drove it out of the desert and burned it.
Rock and roll! What a legend! That is a heck of a legend.
But the folks at the Joshua Tree Inn claim to have seen the apparitions of Parsons, still haunting room number 8 where he passed. Tourists can rent the room for a night if they want a chance of seeing Parsons' ghost. Wait to hear this. You've got to hear this. The ad copy on the Joshua Tree Inn's reservation is pretty charming in that regard. Room 8 is haunted. Bring your guitar and write songs. That's basically the ad.
Bring your guitar and write songs.
Yeah, bring your guitar and write songs.
Dear, bring your own bottle of patchouli oil as well. You'll be all right.
Do you know what? I think that's so funny.
The way he went, I'm sorry, but that's rock and roll. And take me to the Joshua Tree. If that's what he loves, then fair enough. But, oh dear, that is a heck of a story, isn't it?
Do you know what? Well done to his mate, though.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that a long time ago. Yeah, exactly. For him to be able to do that, it's like, he just went, sod it, let's do this, you know?
Yeah.
Fair play. Absolutely fair play to him.
Right, so what else would you like to move on to? Who have you got?
Oh, let's have a look. I don't really... got Mama Cass. And what about Kurt Cobain?
Oh, Kurt Cobain's good.
All right, let's have a look.
Even though I'm going to go into that, but I think he was murdered. But we're not going to that.
Yeah, everybody thinks that. The legendary master of grunge, Kurt Cobain, has been reported to appear in a handful of places and has even left investigators with some curious EVPs. But the most notorious spot is that of a bench. Real exciting, a haunted bench. But it's the spot where witnesses cited the musician hours before his death. It's located in Veretta Park in Seattle, Washington, and is directly in front of the frontman's former home. The bench has been turned into a makeshift memorial with thousands of fans visiting it each and every year. And the lonely ghost of Cobain is reportedly spotted here more often than you might think. As everybody knows, Kurt Cobain died of an apparent suicide, which I will put in inverted commas, by a gunshot wound to his head on April the 5th, 1994, and he was only 27 years old. Yeah, but a suicide note was found next to the body, and many people strongly believe that he was murdered by... Can I say that? I can't really say that on air, can I?
No, you can't say that.
No, but there are rumours that he was murdered by somebody.
Yeah.
And Seattle police recently revealed previously unreleased evidence which strengthened this belief for some.
Do you know what I'm going to say? This show is marked as explicit, so I will say this. But one of the things that is highly unusual is that anyone who knows anything about Kurt Cobain would know that he smoked heroin for a lot of years.
That's right.
A lot of years. But when he died, he had a massive amount of heroin injected into his body. He wouldn't have injected that.
No, because he went on record saying he was scared of needles, and that's why he didn't inject.
It's not even that he wouldn't have done it anyway.
Yeah, well, yes, there's a lot of theories and stories in regards to who, why, where, how, and what money, you know?
Yeah.
But, whilst Caz seems to have passed out in the kitchen or gone to get more alcohol, I'll tell you about...
I've got to rescue my cat.
How did you go from one side of your kitchen and then appear on the other side, Caz?
Because I was rescuing the cat from that side of the kitchen and putting her out the door.
You used sorcery again, didn't you?
No.
It was witchcraft, wasn't it? Do you want me to tell you a story about the one and only Sid Vicious and Nancy?
Okay, go for it.
Well, as you know yourselves, one of the most famous punk bands in the world, and they were famous not only for their music, but the controversy that surrounded them, was the Sex Pistols. On October the 12th, 1978, Nancy Spungen, what a name, the girlfriend of Sex Pistols bassist Sid Vicious, was found dead from a single stab wound to the abdomen in the bathroom of their room at the Hotel Chelsea. Vicious was arrested for the crime, but died of a heroin overdose before it went to trial. Sid and Nancy are said to still reside in the Chelsea. Sid's most often spotted near the first floor elevator, opening and closing the doors. He's also been doing a lot of weird things in room 100. It was Sid Vicious, of course he'd do weird things. And room 100, it was his former residence. So for anybody who wants to go to the Chelsea Hotel and do a bit of investigating, if they'll allow you in there, room 100. People have reported loud music, hearing an arguing couple, floating orbs, dust and temperature changes when no one is in the room. Many have their doubts that Vicious was Nancy's killer. There's reason to believe that it was a crime involving one of the drug dealers who frequented their room, which I believe. Vicious is still trying to plead his innocence to this day. And he died of a heroin overdose whilst out on bail on February the 2nd, 1979, and he was only 21 years old.
Wow.
So, yes, meow, indeed. Even the cat liked that one.
Yeah, even the cat, see, I told you I was rescuing the cat.
Yeah, self, Caz was doing something with her pussy. Right, what were you going to do?
Jimi Hendrix. Now, this isn't really about Jimi Hendrix seeing the ghost. It's more about Jimi Hendrix being a ghost. But... the London room where Jimi Hendrix slept, entertained and played records so loudly, he had two giant speakers that kept breaking, got open to the public. The guitar legend moved into 23 Brook Street in 1968, and more than 45 years later, the bedroom living room of the home has been recreated the way he had it, so that they could open it to the public. I think that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, that's not fair on him.
Yeah, it's still really cool. I think it's quite cool.
Possibly. See, I'm one that when you've gone and passed, I don't think that you are stuck in the era that you passed on, and I think well, you know yourself that people interact with us all the time, and 90% of people will at some point or spirit at some point in their life, and they won't even know they've done it. So, I mean, these things are aware. They're aware of the time frame and time changes and things moving on. I think personally. I mean, he may like it, he may not, but I can't see any lava lamp or smell any or see any bandanas.
They actually recreated it that well. They got it right down to the 2 telephones they actually had, and a scallop shell ashtray that they had on the bedside table. That good. They got it down that perfectly. When the display was almost complete, museum staff proudly demonstrated the results by Skype to their main advisor. Hendrix' then girlfriend, Kathy, said that they had it all wrong, kind of, because it was too untidy. Believe it or not.
Okay.
Apparently, Jimi Hendrix had spent the years that he spent in the army, he was obsessively neat. Everything. The bed may have been draped in hippish fabrics under a canopy made from embroidered silk shawl, but it was meticulously made with hospital corners and it had pillows and cushions squared up, and everything had to be in the right place. But apparently that is still open to everybody who wants to go and see it. In 23 Brook Street, London.
Well, it might be worth a look for those historians and people who like, Hendrix music and stuff. Just be careful when you go there. If you hear somebody shouting "Waller" in the Watchtower, just sit back and listen.
Well, basically, Kathy Etchingham, the relationship broke down because she was too untidy.
See, as you know yourself, I'm ex-army, and I have to admit, I'm a bit of a clean freak. I'm not overly obsessive or anything like that, but I do like things to be clean and tidy. I don't do hospital corners, though, because I have a duvet, and hospital corners would annoy the living shite out of me.
But do you know what? I mean, that just doesn't go with the image of Jimi Hendrix.
No, it doesn't at all, does it? Waller on the Watchtower, petrol on his guitar, on his knees, off his boobs, and just doesn't, does it? But I can see that. I can see that if he's ex-army.
Right. She found the druggy music scene.
What?
Basically, this is what broke them up. She was too untidy, and she found the druggy music scene, and she kind of went off in her own little way. But then he went and died.
Yeah, that's so selfish. I mean, just go and do that. I mean, you could have waited,
But before that, it was Etchingham who'd found the evening paper ad for the £30 a week flat. And Jimi Hendrix said it was his first real home. The advert boasted the flat came with a fully fitted kitchen, a modest pink bathroom suite. But Hendrix gave Etchingham £1,000 in cash, a fortune in 1968, to be fair, to fill it with soft furnishing from John Lewis and Liberty, who were just right nearby. And he had her cut out this whole house. But Hendrix took a really keen interest in the interiors. And Etchingham recalled how occasionally startled shoppers would recognise him in the fabrics department of John Lewis and kind of look round and go, "What? That's Jimi Hendrix. What's he doing?" I could just imagine that. It wouldn't quite look in place in John Lewis, would he, really?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I've got a few things for you about ghosts and stuff.
Jimi Hendrix, that just cracks me up. And John Lewis.
What's this year's Christmas advert going to be like? The John Lewis Christmas advert? Is it going to be in going ding, but with like a ghost? What the heck has just happened? Something has just exploded somewhere downstairs.
Oh dear.
I have cats looking at me like, what is that? I have dogs going, oh, Scooby Doo. So I'm just going to stay up here out of the way. So yes. When I found out what that is. One of my darling cats decided it was going to try and pilfer the dog food and spilt it everywhere. Lovely. Anyway, right. Did you know Bob Dylan has said that he's felt the presence of Buddy Holly during a recording of 1997's Time Out of Mind?
Really?
Apparently, yeah. He said, while we were recording, every place I turned, there was Buddy Holly. You know what I mean? It was one of those things. Every place you turned, you walked down a hallway, you heard Buddy Holly records like, that'll be the day. When you get in the car, go over to the studio and Rave On will be playing. When you walked into the studio and someone's playing a cassette of It's So Easy. And this would happen day after day after day. Phrases of Buddy Holly songs would just come out of nowhere, man. It was spooky. But after we recorded and left, it stayed in our heads. Whoa, Buddy Holly spirit, it's there someplace hastening this record, dude. So there you go.
Wow.
One of Lou Reed's records, My House, was all about the ghost of the house of Della, and it was the ghost of Delamore Spott, who was actually living in Lou Reed's house at the time. So his song My House is all about the ghost that's haunting it.
Really?
Yep. Let's have a look what else I couldn't find. Oh, I know I did have one. It's an alien one, but Lemmy. I don't know. Where has he gone? Where's Mr. Lemmy? Oh, Keith Richards. That was it. He said rock and roll. Keith Richards, who basically is mummified to still be going at this year.
He really is, isn't he? How the hell is he still going?
I have no idea. He looks like he's made out of matchsticks, But basically, he became convinced that UFOs were landing at his Redlands estate in West Sussex, having famously been raided by the police the year before. I mean, this is 1968 that he thought that the UFOs were coming down, and he was more hospitable towards the supposed paranormal intruders. And he's like, "Yeah, man, I've seen a few, but nothing that any of the ministries would believe, dude." And he told Melody Maker that year, "I believe they exist. Plenty of people have seen them. They're tied up with a lot of things, man, like the dawn of man, for example. It's just a matter of people. It's just not a matter of people spotting the flying saucer. I'm no expert, man. I'm still trying to understand what's going on. Pass me that zoot." So, yeah. Keith Richards has seen aliens. Lemmy says he has seen aliens. When he was with Hawkwind at the time, and a roadie for Jimi Hendrix. Did you know he was a roadie for Jimi Hendrix?
Really?
Yeah. He was frontman of Motorhead, bass player of Hawkwind, and he was a roadie for Jimi Hendrix. Lemmy Kilmister. His UFO encounter happened before all this, however, in 1966, back when he was playing in a beat combo, the Rockin' Vickers. Oh, what a name. He said, "This thing came over the horizon and stopped dead in the middle of the sky," he told Inked. Then it went from a standstill to top speed immediately. We don't have aircraft now that can do it, and we didn't have aircraft at the time. So that was pretty eye-opening for me, and that was from Lemmy Kilminster.
Wow.
And there's the John Lennon one, there's the Jimi Hendrix one, there's
So what do you think, Mark? I mean, the whole rock thing and paranormal thing, do they kind of go hand in hand?
I think they do go hand in hand, because I mean, you can't have rock gods, especially 60s, 70s, early 80s rock gods.
Yeah.
You can't have rock gods without sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And sex, drugs, and rock and roll will
kind of tie in with the party.
It ties in with it, but as we all know, there are a lot of ancient tribes that would use hallucinogenic drugs to put them on the spirit's plane so they could commune. So, although we look at it as, they're just smoking a doobie or this, that, and the other. Hey, we weren't there. We didn't see what really happened. So it may have just been a trip. It may have been real.
But then again, you come into like the 90s and you've got Marilyn Manson, and it's still carrying on.
All I can say is look at Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
The man has a boob. I mean, seriously, the man has a boob.
Well, look at Alice Cooper.
Do you know what I've got to tell you?
You know what? He's an absolute legend, that man.
My friend, and this is serious. My friend is called Gary Cooper, and he's originally from London. He lives in Somerset now, and he's related to Alice Cooper. And his cousin regularly goes over to Alice Cooper's ranch in America twice a year, and has holidays over there.
Wow, really?
And he has a thing about UFOs, and he's not nuts or anything like that, but himself, the people who work on his ranch, everybody, they've all seen him because it's vast, desert plains. They go out there a lot, and it's apparently for the people of where he lives, it's the norm. So, oh yeah, there's UFO last night, like we would see a tourist go through where we live, they see aliens.
Well, do you know what is actually quite interesting? I brought this up last week, but Alice Cooper brought out an album last year. Don't know if you heard it. Do you know what the album's called?
Go on.
Paranormal.
We need to get hold of him and have him on the show.
I've already tried. I'm already on that one. Trust me. I'm working on that one.
Well, if that happens, you bloody well get hold of me to come and be on the show with you.
Oh, I would. But I mean, I am working on that one. Don't see how I'm going to make it happen, but I'm working on that one.
Definitely.
But Alice Cooper, he looks kind of freaky. He does look scary. To be fair, he looks like the whole haunted, old, creepy man in the house thing going on. But he's really serious about the paranormal. And when you dig into it, a lot of them really are really into the paranormal.
Oh yeah, they definitely are. When you look at it, even Def Leppard had paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
So and I think that's possibly after the drummer lost his arm as well.
And they lost their guitar player as well, didn't they?
That's right. And they regularly have things go on. Because, they had to buy back all the royalties to their original tracks because they were completely done over. And they've had to re-record everything again so that it's their proper version and nobody else can take it from them. Yeah. But that's another... I'd love to interview them. I really would, because I think that it's for another show, but they have some very interesting stuff. Very interesting.
Well, sadly, I think most of them are living in Dublin, aren't they?
Yeah, but they're one of my favourite rock bands of all time. They are.
Well, I'm only in Doncaster. If they were still living in Sheffield, I'd go and track them down, but...
Yeah, no, I'll be going over to Ireland at some point this year with my daughter, and we're going to go on a bike and see my family. But whilst I'm over there, I'm like, oh, Jazz is there. Hold on, Dad. Get play. Pour some sugar for me. Yeah.
But this has been really interesting for me. This is the show I've wanted to do, to be fair, because...
And you asked me to do it with you? Are you mad, woman?
No, I know that you love your rock music.
I do.
So
I do. I am sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Well, actually, no, not the drugs. Unless you call blood pressure tablets drugs. So in that case, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Party on, Wayne. I've got the tattoos and the motorbike, so hey ho. And
it was Sean Cadman last week. Sean is very into his rock music and he's into paranormal. So
isn't it weird? You were just saying, rock music and the paranormal seem to go hand in hand.
They do.
And it's like, oh, what happened to my hand? Ooh. But yeah, they do go hand in hand.
Unless you happen to be Kerry Greenaway and like things like Happy Hardcore and Robbie Williams and stuff. We don't actually have an excuse for that. So we're not going to make excuses for Kerry. We're just going to say Kerry's being Kerry and leave it at that.
Cal, bless you, Kerry. Do you like the Wurzels? Let's just Caz is just being silly. Ignore her. You can like that blackbird, Owl Abbey. You listen to that stuff.
All I'm saying is I love my taste in music. Everybody, # just saying.
Millennium. Anyway.
Too funny. Just funny.
Well, Caz, it is down to you now to say good night to the viewers who are listening to us. Yes, I said that deliberately.
yes, we are going to say goodnight to everyone. But first, can I remind everyone, you can listen to Parasearch, obviously, on Facebook. And you can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Twitter and the World Wide Web. And please remember to join us tomorrow night for the Dark Mirror Show.
Brilliant!
Where it'll be me, Kerry and Mark who will be doing the Dark Mirror Show tomorrow night. I'll be doing it all the way from Grimsby Town Hall.
What are we talking about tomorrow night?
Tech versus energy.
Tech versus energy.
Yeah.
Oh, hello! Goodbye! I saw somebody sidle up there and sidle off again. Tech
that's bad.
versus energy.
Anyway.
I'm Mark.
Right. So we're going to say goodnight.
Okay. Well, we should say goodnight. Who's done the research for tomorrow, by the way?
I've done a poll and everything.
Have you?
Yeah.
Well done. See, you're not just a wee tiny knack feagle. You've done really well.
I have done loads this week about
You were supposed to have come over and seen us as well. Again.
And I actually forgot I was meant to be in Grimsby until I was like, last night, and I'm sitting going, oh, I'm in Grimsby.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
But anyway. So I will be live from Grimsby Town Hall with North Knott's Ghost Hunts.
And I will be live from somewhere else in Yorkshire tomorrow night as well. And Kerry will be live from a wine bottle somewhere in the East Coast.
Poor Kerry. We're not picking on Kerry. We've got to be nice to Kerry. Even though she likes Robbie Williams, we've got to
Actually, to be fair, I used to sing in a band, and we did used to sing rock music, but I do sing Robbie Williams, and I sing Angels very well. But I'll do that for Kerry on one of her birthdays. There you go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
Caz, say goodbye to everybody.
Right. Good night, guys. Thank you for joining us. Say good night, Mark.
Good night, Mark.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.